Okay. Hello, Emma.
Hi,
How are you this morning?
I'm good. I'm good. It's just another Wednesday morning in New York.
Yeah, another Wednesday in New York. What is like your regular morning routine, like to getting ready for the day?
Yeah. I have a little dog, a little dachshund, which is new. Well, I mean, not brand new, but newish. That has like kind of changed up my morning routine a little bit. And I also live with my partner, it's not just me, and I kind of have to um, you know, adjust for all the people in dogs around.
Right.
But for the most part, I get up. It depends on, I try to get 8 hours sleep every night. So it depends on if I had like events the night before or things like that. But I try to be up by like 7:30 every day. Sometimes that's up and not out of bed, but I try to get up. And then I try not to be on my phone, but I also like to like read a couple newsletters that I get in the morning, like overall, like just like kind of national and like global newsletters.
Cool.
Um, and then this is very random, but it's something I implemented during COVID. Or quarantine. I do like a French lesson every morning, just to like get my brain going. And then I usually take my dog on a walk. I get a coffee or make a coffee at home and bring it with me, with my partner, and then I come home and get ready for the day. And um, sometimes make breakfast before, depends on kind of the mood. And I'm usually at my desk by like 8:39. And I either sit here all day and work, or I go to meetings, or but that's kind of how my mornings start. Nothing too exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I see on your stories like every day you do like a little to-do list, which is so cute. When does that come into play?
Yeah. I am like I use a bullet journal. And so I do this, my to-do list, I guess process is I make like a to-do list for the week. And then I like block out every Monday. I sit down in the morning and I like kind of put it on my calendar for the week. So I kind of know like what days I need to do what. And yeah, my mornings I did it like twice, and I got a lot of feedback being like, oh, this is really cool to see like what like a someone that works for themselves or what like a designer does all day.
Right.
And it's also like a fun way to plug my clients into my story sometimes, like get people to click on them and see them and stuff like that. I always ask clients if it's like if they want to be,
Mm.
some people don't have Instagrams yet, or some people, especially like small businesses, if they don't want people seeing the account for it, they don't set up or things like that. So I make sure it's okay with clients. And if it's not, I always just put like a kind of like industry, a little something to start the day off on stories.
It's so cute. Okay, so for those who don't know what you do, why don't you introduce yourself and a little bit about you?
Yeah. I own a creative studio called ESM Creative, based in New York, and I work with people all over it's weird to say, but the world. I'm working with someone right now in Amsterdam. It's like so cool.
Oh,
Every time someone reaches out from like another country, like I can't believe that this is real. But yeah, so I do graphic design, creative direction, branding, strategy, kind of overall anything creative. Me and my team do for small businesses, and I say people with audiences. It's kind of like my new. I've been trying to work on like how to say who I work for. So
mhm.
like people that are have podcasts, have are active like on Instagram, or have blogs, or different things like that. So it's kind of a balance. My clients are like 50-50, like product based or service based small businesses, and people that have like their own personal brand.
That's so cool. It's such a cool market that you're going into that you're like, okay, I want to focus on like people with audience because that's only growing and growing every day. So like for you to focus on that is really, really cool and wise because like people are going to see that. How like you are working for like those type of people, but also like small businesses and like more
Yeah.
of that vibe too.
Yeah, it's fun to balance the two too, because I really do love I love working for product based businesses that have
Mhm.
like I love doing package design, and I love like kind of doing like logos for like a physical item. But then I also love doing like personal branding and personal projects, like and that it's like I've done like ebooks and cookbooks and all sorts of random stuff for like people that kind of have like their own personal brand. Yeah, it's fun. And I think also like it's fun to kind of see both worlds, and like I don't know if I could ever do one or the other like alone. I think that I like kind of that it makes it not so mundane is having kind of like a variety of clients, because I have like a lot of like colleagues, or I would say like as in like people that do what I do that are more niche down into like one specific like category, and I don't think I could ever like only work with like a specific like wellness brands, only work with like a specific very small niche. Yeah, and I also really love working with podcasts. I think it's so funny. I was at like a networking event a couple weeks ago, and I was talking to an older man, and I said, yeah, I work for a lot of podcasts, and he's like, you do graphic design for podcasts? What do they need like design for? I'm like, well,
Oh,
actually, a lot. He's like, it's so fun, the irony of working like for an audio-based platform, doing like graphic work for. It's kind of funny.
that is funny. I always thought of it as like, how like pop stars or like singers, like they have album art and they have to do like music promos. So like whenever like we started transitioning into podcasts, I just viewed it as like the same thing, but like talking.
Yeah, and you also market podcasts. Yeah,
Right.
it's just a different form of content.
So let's go back to like the beginning a little bit. So did you grow up in Charleston?
I grew up in Hilton Head, South Carolina.
Okay.
So just a little bit south of Charleston, but yeah, I grew up there, but I moved around. So my current address is my 23rd address in my life.
Oh my God.
And grew up moving around like a ton. So my parents aren't from South Carolina, but my grandparents had been living near Hilton Head, and my parents decided to move there just to kind of be closer to them as they were getting older. Yeah, so I grew up there, and I went to USC in South Carolina. I went to school thinking I wanted to be a doctor, so I had this whole like plan of going in state for undergrad, because I was like, oh, I'm going to spend so much money on med school, I have to save money and go in state. And I'm not in med school, as we can all see. But yeah, so I was a biomedical engineering major when I started doing design work, kind of just as like a creative outlet. I started doing it just when I got to school, I had access to like the Creative Cloud. Well, back then it wasn't really called the Cloud, but Adobe and Photoshop and Illustrator and all that. So I started kind of just like tinkering around, because I liked the digital, like kind of I've always done like physical art, and so the digital art world like kind of like interests me. Yeah, so it always interested me. So I kind of started like playing around, and I was in a couple clubs in school that needed flyers or social media graphics or
Right.
whatnot. So that's kind of how I started, was just like organically like kind of making stuff. And I had overall like a not to toot my own horn, but I had a decent eye. So like putting layouts together was like really fun for me, and I could kind of do that without having kind of any training. I just had to like figure out how to change fonts and things and all that. I watched a ton of YouTube videos and Skillshare and a lot of Googling. Yeah, and so I kind of got comfortable in the platforms and the programs, and I was going really regularly to this yoga studio in my college town, and she was kind of like my first quote unquote client.
Okay.
I bartered yoga for design work. So yeah, that was like my first like real life, and I honestly like, and she was very open to me learning as I kind of was going along, because she was like a little bit older and like wasn't super familiar with like Instagram and things like that, so I helped set up a lot of that. She was awesome. She was like such a great experience to like, get to she'd be like, okay, we need a flyer for this, or we need like random things or a logo for this event or whatever, and I'd kind of like be like watching YouTube as I like did it myself and figuring it out and stuff. Yeah, so then she referred me kind of within my college town to like some other small business owners, and mainly in the fitness world, but also like some other, my first little niche was the fitness world, but yeah, and then it kind of working with all those people in my locally, which is what gave me the confidence to kind of apply for different projects. And that's actually when I started working for Danielle and Brooke. I applied. They were like looking for, I'm really into podcasts back then, and I still am, but it was kind of when a lot of them were just getting started. It was when a lot of them were just getting started. And so I reached out to do their cover, but I also kind of like wrote I would say quote unquote, like a marketing plan kind of thing.
Oh,
And at
wow.
that point I had changed my major to marketing because I wanted a business degree. And I thought that like, because I honestly didn't see design growing into a business at that point in college. Like I think when you're in college, like entrepreneurship, even though you can major in entrepreneurship, I feel like it isn't talked about or like I guess championed or anything like
Yeah.
that while you're in school. So I honestly didn't even like it wasn't even like on my mind that that's even a possibility. So I set myself up for, getting an actual quote unquote an actual job. I mean like a corporate, you know,
Mhm.
working for someone else's job when I say that. So I yeah, but I wrote out a marketing plan for them, like here's what other podcasts are doing, here's what I think you guys should do. And I think that's kind of what set me apart and why they picked me to do their cover. And then therefore I now am their creative director and I do all their stuff down to like
Wow.
planning the last photo shoot. Yeah, it's fun. And so then working for them, I kind of grew into like that audience, people with audience space.
Right.
It's been really fun. Yeah. And then working for small businesses, alongside, and it's that's kind of where I started and how it kind of grew.
I love your story. Well, I love it even more because I went to USC too. And I feel like I definitely felt the energy of like entrepreneurship not being talked about. Like we weren't taught
Yeah.
that in our classes. I majored in public relations because I thought that majoring in marketing or like in the business school would be like too hard because I'm like horrible at math. But like I just thought that I don't know, like I thought like PR was like what I had to do because like visual communications or that major like to me like didn't seem real for some reason.
Yeah. To me, when I was changing majors from when I went into change, I had changed from biomedical engineering to biochemistry,
Wow.
and then from that to chemistry. And I was like, I don't know what I was thinking, what I would do with that. I was just like unhappy in what I was doing, and I was like changing majors because I thought that would solve the problem. But I went to a career counselor, and
Mhm.
they told me about the viscom major, and I was like, I don't know, like I feel like I also went to a high school where like graphic design wasn't like, I feel like some people are introduced to graphic design earlier on and it might have been more comfortable
Mhm.
like with that major. But I also had this weird, like I wanted a business degree because I thought I could like do other things with it kind of thing. I don't know. Now it doesn't matter at all. That not
Yeah.
even, I mean, I am using it in the sense I actually learned a lot in that degree, but I could be doing what I'm doing without a college degree. And I also think that I have younger siblings, and I think that that's also like, entrepreneurship isn't like talked about a lot, or not going to college and like kind of doing your own thing. I mean, yes, I'm sure people that go to college, have like, more opportunities in the sense of like jobs are willing to hire them. But like, I think that you can have just as much success not going to college, or going to college and not graduate. I think that there's a different path for everyone. And I think that um, that one mainstream path is like marketed too much to us
Right.
as high school students.
So what like when did it go from having a couple clients to like you and your brain clicking, I want to start this as like my own thing. This is going to be my own business. Like when did that come about? And was that supported by your family and like people around you? Like how was that transition?
Yeah. So it really started picking up when I was a senior in college. I had a job all through college. I put myself through college financially, and so I had always had a job, and I had always worked like 15, 20 hours a week. And my senior year, I had like saved up that summer. I'd had like a big job in New York City and stuff, and I had saved up enough that I was like, okay, I'm gonna try and I had been doing the design stuff, so I had that, but I was like, I'm not gonna get a quote unquote traditional job this semester. Like I want to, have a little bit more of a life my senior year, and I want to also have like some time to do work on this design kind of side hustle. At that point, it was really like a hobby. I saw it as a hobby that was making me money. I had an Instagram account for it, and I would post stuff sometimes on it, and I didn't like really tell anyone about it, and I didn't have a website. I had like nothing. I didn't have like pricing guide. I had no processes set up. But yeah, I had like, I'd probably be working like 10 to 15 hours a week on it during my senior year of college. And again, I still had full intention of getting, I was applying for marketing jobs, and some like marketing jobs that design like was like a plus, because if that made sense. Like I had like that, I had put together a portfolio in like Google Drive.
Mhm.
And that's what I would use to like pitch to new clients. I'd be like, hey, like my site is in the works, aka didn't even have a domain. And here's like my portfolio on Google Drive just to like show you some of my work. And that's also what I was sending to potential jobs. And it didn't really click until I got a couple job offers back. I applied to jobs. My partner is a year older than me, so he had moved to New York already, and I had lived with him between my junior and senior year while I interned in the city. So I knew I liked it here. But I applied to jobs kind of all over. Like I applied to New York, I applied to like LA, kind of all over the country. And I'm not someone that like grew up being like, oh, I want to like live in this specific place. Like I kind of was open to, I knew I didn't want to move to South Carolina and I kind of wanted to get out of the South, but I was very much open to like kind of going wherever. And I got a couple job offers back that were for like, entry salary of like 32, 35, $37,000. And I was like, I mean, when you're graduating college, you're like, wow, that's so much money. But I was kind of thinking, I'd sit down and think about it and be like, wow, I think I could actually make this much money, if not more, if I'm only working 10, 15 hours a week right now as a designer. And I'm also charging like, I was not charging enough. And I like kind of didn't know what to charge at that point. But I knew that I wasn't charging enough. And so it took those job offers, and also like my partner was a huge like advocate to like starting my own thing. He's like, all you can do if you don't try, like you're gonna always wonder what it was like. And if you give it an all, if you give, act like it's your full-time job and give it 40 hours a week right now. So at first when I was working quote unquote like 40 hours a week, I was making my website, I was setting up like contracts, I was setting up kind of like my systems, and I'm like a very type A organized person. So I was like creating I literally would write out on paper, like, okay, the client comes to me, here's the first step, here's the next step, like kind of like what I would do step by step. Because at that point I had just kind of been doing it like, oh, like I have a lot of classes this week, like I'll get back to you by the end of the week kind of thing. Like I didn't have any timelines or anything like that. Yeah, so I kind of spent some time after I graduated. I lived at home for a little bit for like 2 months before I moved to New York, and I kind of got my website set up, and I signed up signed up to be an LLC, and all that kind of stuff, and kind of got all my ducks in a row. And then I gave myself 6 months. I told myself I was going to move to New York. I was going to do this full time for 6 months. And if, I was lucky that I was moving in with someone. So, splitting rent in New York, it really helps. And, it's, and I had also like saved a good bit during like my, I still had some savings and things like that. So I had some room to fail. But yeah, so I gave myself some time, and I was like, if I need to supplement, like if it doesn't do well and I need to supplement with, get a service job, like a barista job or work at a restaurant or something, I could totally do that. But in 6 months, if it wasn't doing well, then I would reapply for jobs again. And when I went full, it was amazing. When I published my website, my inquiries just like, I think people like took me more serious, and they were willing to pay my prices. And I joined a co-working space too, which really helped. I spent like a month in New York working out of my apartment. I was going crazy. So I joined a co-working space, and that really helped me find a new client base too, because I joined like a all women's entrepreneurship based like co-working space in the city. So I met like a ton of entrepreneurs and people looking for logos and graphics and social media help. And at that point I would take on anything. Like if someone had any project, I would do literally anything and everything involving design work. So now I kind of now I only kind of accept more projects that are more in line with like what I'd like to do. But back then I was a lot more flexible with kind of like what I was kind of willing to work, if someone gave me some like, I don't know, some crazy annoying project, I'd be like, yeah, so excited to work with you. I definitely am a little bit more picky with not only, and that's something also I had to really learn along the way, that you don't have to say yes to everything that comes along. And even sometimes like, in the beginning when you're like trying to make a name for yourself and trying to like, just pay rent and things like that, it's I kind of had to just say yes to things. But as I kind of started getting more busy and things like that, it still, I had a really hard time saying no, and making sure that you're like vetting people. So you're not you know, that you're working with people you want to be working with. You know, something that's it's hard to learn to say no for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I love the beginning of your like story. Amazing. I love you like how you took it so seriously. How you're like, I'm gonna do this one thing for 6 months and act like it's my full-time job. Prime advice. That's amazing because I feel like that's like a perfect amount of time to like see if it takes off or fails if you're being consistent every day and showing up. It worked. Like it seems like you're doing great. Your website is beautiful and just like your whole style is like so cool. And I think a lot of my listeners and a lot of people in my life like get stuck, and this is including me too, like to get started on like an individual project. You know, it's like I can't pick something. Like that's what I'm going through right now. It's like I can't pick something. Even if I wanted to focus, do I want to be a pop star? Do I want to have my own creative studio? Do I want to work corporate? Whatever it is, I can't decide to give that 6 months to that one thing. What would you tell somebody who may be hesitant to focus on like one project and like see if it works for themselves?
Yeah, I definitely think if you're like multi-passionate and you have like multiple projects, like right now I'm not trying to make it about myself, but right now I'm working on an app for basically it's a synopsis is like it's like a volunteering in New York City. It's like connecting volunteers to volunteering opportunities in New York. And I tried how it came about was I tried to find a place to like volunteer, and I couldn't really commit to a certain time every month or week because I just with clients, I just didn't know if like Thursdays at noon I didn't know if I could do that, and there weren't a lot of anyway, long story short, I'm working on this app, and it's really hard to be multi passionate where, and now like I still consider it a passion project. Like my company is my, my passion has become my job, which has lots of pros and cons. But I think that if you have multiple projects you're wanting to work on, just making timelines for all of them and kind of having, I think there's no, for example, for you, like there's no negative side of like trying to do multiple things. Like I think that also trying to see how, and that's also why like trying to see how they kind of all play out. And that's a big part of why I name, like my website is McGoldrick.com and not ESM Creative, because I knew that I was like, okay, what if I want to start a podcast? What if I want to do this or do that, or start another company, or start like I started that it's like a collective of like other designers, like it's called Golden Arrow Guild. And so I have that on my website, and I really wanted to give myself the room to, be creative and grow and not be like kind of pinholed into one part of my passion. I think a big part of it is creating like timelines or goals, or how I said 6 months, like I had no goal for that, but every month, like in that 6 months, every month I was making more money than the last. And that's like, that was my, I still was kind of like, I'd have to say no to some plans because I'd be like, hey, I can't, or I'd go out and I'd be like, I'm not gonna, it's annoying, but when we were first post-grad moving to a new city, most people understand, like, they're like, hey, like, can we not split that check? I only got one margarita and you guys got 4, like, let's, pay like per what we got kind of thing. And most people like understand, especially like right when you're graduating and moving to a new place, like kind of figuring out that kind of stuff. And but yeah, I think that just kind of, again, I know like random tangents, but I think creating that like a timeline and like with goals that like, and with markers that are like, for you example, like if you wanted to, did you say pop star was the first thing you said? You sing?
I like to, yeah.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. That's so cool. So like for that kind of thing, why can't you sing and have a creative studio? Like, it's not like you're, I think it's, when it comes to like decision making of like naming a creative studio, now that is where it, that's where it gets like a little bit more like tedious. But I think that, you can do both of those things. And that's like where you kind of have to be like, okay, 20% of my day is going to be pop star life, and 80% of my day is going to be, creative studio life until I can make more money being a pop star. Then I'll like balance it out and things like that. But I think that, for being, for example, like for singing, like you're like, okay, for singing, I need to, I don't even know what but let's, for example, you're like, I want to get 5 gigs a month, or I want to, record an EP, or, whatever it is. I think that like figuring out what that end goal is, and then like breaking it down into like, okay, what can I do next week, next month, or today kind of thing to get to that goal. And why couldn't you do that with 2 things instead of just one. I totally in the mindset of more the merrier with creative ventures.
I love that. Thank you for saying that. I do love to say it. I do think that is like so true. It's like breaking down those goals and like starting small, seeing like what you could do in a day just to like work towards that one big goal in the end. I want to talk too about like how you communicate with clients, because I don't have an LLC. I'm not my own business, but I do like freelance some stuff on the side, like social media management, other things. And like dealing with client communication can be difficult. And I wonder, like, how do you kind of like set boundaries when it comes to like them paying your prices, them like knowing your worth, like how many like edits do you do for a client, like that sort of thing? Like, how do you kind of stand your ground? Do you have them sign a contract that like lays it all out? How does that look?
Yeah. So first thing you said was LLC stuff. I didn't have one for a while, and I think that the benefit to setting one up is just there's like it depends on what city you're in, but like for New York, for example, like you're covered a lot more for like, for example, like health insurance. You can join like this freelancers union, and you can get health insurance through them, and like there's just like a lot of benefits to it. And then there's also a benefit of a lot of clients will ask for, it depends on like the client, but they can ask for like 1099s or W2s. And once you set up an LLC, you